Hello, everyone. Maybe I'm live. There we go. Hey, somebody jumped on. We're going to go live at 6. I went ahead and got this started. What's up, Katie? Can you hear me okay? Are you driving and watching me? We're going to go live in like 2 minutes. I wanted to jump on here, though, let everybody get in. So it'll be a couple of minutes before we get started here. All right, cool. Everybody can hear me fine. Hope everybody had a good Wednesday. I guess if you're watching this later off of YouTube, you can go ahead and fast forward a couple of minutes before I get started here, because I will be saving this out and putting it on YouTube. Well, you'll get some of it then. You'll get some of the stuff. I don't think I can be done in 30 minutes, but we will try. Who else is on? Say hi, ask questions. Don't be shy. Tell me I suck. I can take it. Hey, Will. Arkin Canine is my YouTube channel. Yep. Yes, ma'am. Sounds good. I'm going to try to do a better job of keeping up with comments. I missed some last time. I thought it was scrolling up as I was talking. Apparently it wasn't. So I have to keep scrolling down as I go here. It doesn't pop up. I'll PM you. I love that guy. I don't know if you want to stay on for this, Will. I'm just doing a reward thing. Just kind of a heads up. I'm going to do like a constant state versus variable state reward, some deep practice and reward placement today, including not just reward where to place your hands, but direct and indirect kind of stuff. This is kind of a number two to a video I did last week where I pretty much did like what is a reward. I guess I'll go ahead and do that. We'll jump in. So last week we went over kind of what is a reward, what qualifies as a reward. Reward is in the dog of the mind. It has to be rewarding to the dog or it's not a reward. We talked about reward values, how to make rewards more valuable, what rewards are more valuable, knowing what rewards are more valuable to your dog, that kind of thing. And then we talked about primary and secondary rewards. Cool, man. We talked about primary and secondary rewards. We talked about classical conditioning. I went to club a couple of nights later, and my awesome members and clients that are there told me that I suck and I should explain that more through demonstration, that people don't get classical conditioning and how to load a marker. So I did a short video on that. I'm sorry about the way the audio came out on that. I wasn't thinking. We were in club and I just wanted to throw it out there real quick, so I didn't have headphones or anything in, and I was away from the camera in the park. It's pretty simple. You should be able to get it off of that video though, so hang in there. All right, so This is session 2, okay, of what we're going over. And this is starting off training your dog um, through reward-based training, right? So I talked a little bit about, we're talking obedience here, okay? We're talking about obedience. So when you think of the term obedience, being obedient to something isn't something we necessarily want to do. I saw it in your eyes, Katie. I know you were thinking I suck, but it's okay. No. Being obedient to something isn't something we want to do, right? We're obedient to exercise, to diet, to, if you're a Christian, to the Bible. We're obedient to the laws. We don't necessarily want to be. We want to drive 65 to and from work through town and all that, but we can't. We have to be obedient to it, or there's consequences if you're not obedient, right? So with obedience, when people say, I want obedience on my dog, they don't consider the fact that what they're asking out of their dog isn't something their dog wants to do. It's not things your dog wants to do. So you have to show your dog how to do these things. And one of the best ways to get some very powerful behavior, which we call obedience, out of your dog is through reward. If you're rewarding a dog, if you're paying a dog to do something for you, they're more likely to do that, right? So that's why we're doing the reward thing here. I just wanted to clarify that. So obedience isn't something your dog wants to do. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a want and desire in the dog to do the things we want them to do through reward. So jumping in, last week we went through primary and secondary loading the marker, right? So I couldn't find my clicker last time, which was laying right next to my laptop. This is a clicker. That's all it is, little plastic thing. There's different types. They just make a mechanical sound, okay? Another way, that's a secondary reinforcer, okay? Your primary would be your food or your ball or your toy, okay? I'm not going to get back into that. Go watch the first video afterwards if you haven't seen it. It'll explain that. Secondary reinforcer. This announces and takes the place of the reward to come, okay? It just says, hey, you did that right. I like it. Here comes your reward. I like a mechanical marker. Not every dog trainer out there uses a mechanical marker, a clicker. They just use a verbal marker like a yes or a okay or something like that. It's totally fine. I get it. I don't want to carry this with me 24/7, and I don't. I usually have some clickers laying around. My dogs all know the clicker. They're strong with the clicker. However, I also have verbal marks on them so that mean the exact same thing. So that I don't have to have this and I can just verbally mark them, okay? So after you load the mark, your dog is classically conditioned, you're ready to start showing it some behaviors, or you're ready to start telling your dog yes, that they're doing the right behavior in your house and give them reward for behavior. That's where we get into constant versus variable state reinforcement or reward, okay? So what does that mean? When we first learn something, when a dog first learns something, it needs to be constantly rewarded, okay? Not only does it need to be constantly rewarded, but you need to be doing multiple reps, as many reps as you can get in. And they need to be rewarded, paid for every single rep they do, okay? So this is a common mistake with brand new dog trainers or people that got a dog and they decide I'm going to train it myself and they get going. They get the dog to do something, let's say a sit, right? So the dog sits for the first time and they give it a treat. And the dog's like, cool, I like that, so I'm going to keep doing that. They give it a few more treats and then pretty soon, after 6, 7, 8 times the dog sits, the owner goes, cool, my dog knows how to sit, and they quit rewarding that behavior. And that's where you get into my dog can sit, and the dog's not sitting. Or you get into an environment where there's distractions or something of more value in the environment that the dog wants, and the dog ignores the owner, right? So you want to constantly reward your dog. Now, that's not a for everything. You want to constantly reward your dog for a long, long time. You want your dog very, very solid in that behavior. You want it to sit every time, be happy to sit every time, and know that the payment's coming every time, right? So the best way I've heard it described to me is the Coke machine versus the slot machine at Vegas. All right. So if you go up to a Coke machine and put $1 in, you put $1 in, you get a Coke out, $1 in, Coke out, $1 in, Coke out. The day you walk up and put $1 in that Coke machine and it doesn't give you a Coke, you're not going to trust that Coke machine anymore, right? It screwed you over. Like, that's how the dog feels. So the dog goes through this behavior over and over and over, and it's getting paid constantly. So the day it doesn't get paid for that reward, it's thinking, whoa, what happened here? We had a deal. I do the behavior, you give the reward. That's what we do. Okay? It can be different reward. Once that's been done multiple times, weeks, months, even my 4.5-year-old male dog, I will still take him back. I'll take like a week and go back to basics with him, and I will take him out and I will put him in sits and downs and stands and do constant reward, constant reinforcement. Like I'll hammer it, right? We'll go through a lot of reps because I want it in his mind. I don't want it to ever be unclear. So you do that for a long time, and it's okay to come back to that every once in a while. Then once you've done that for a really long time and your dog knows the behavior very well, you can take it to Tractor Supply and do it, your Home Depot stores and do it, home improvement stores. You can take them to the park. You can be out on a walk and just stop and say sit, and your dog sits. Once you get that, and honestly, I don't even name the behavior in this state. And we'll talk more about that next week. But in this state, I really don't even name the behavior yet. I'm constantly rewarding just a behavior, whether I'm doing a hand signal or I'm using a leash to get the dog to sit, or I've done what's called free shaping, where I just wait for the dog to sit one day. I mark it and I give him a reward, and the dog goes, wait a minute, why did I do that? And then he sits again, and I mark it and I give him a reward. And pretty soon the dog goes, oh, wow, I put my butt on the ground, this dude gives me a reward. It's called free shaping. You can do that. Or you can put the dog in a position, mark it, and give it a reward, right? But I constantly reward for a long time. Once the dog has it down, and usually it has it down and another behavior down, let's say like a lay down behavior, a sit and a lay down. Then once both of those are solid in a constant state, I'll move my dog to a variable state of reinforcement. And that's where I ask for a sit and the dog sits, and then I ask for a down immediately after, and the dog goes, what the heck? But it downs. And then you can ask for a sit again, or you can mark that and reward, but it's variable, right? So my dog did the behavior. I did not mark and reward it. I asked for another behavior. The dog did it, and now I mark and reward it. You can do 2 or 3 behaviors. Just be careful starting out in your variable state, because it's an unfair state in the dog's mind, right? So variable state causes aggravation and confusion to the animal until it realizes what's going on. It also makes behavior stronger and faster. So like what I'm telling you right here with the mark system, with marking a dog and rewarding, is the same thing they use with fish in SeaWorld. It's also the same thing they use with like lions and hyenas and stuff. There's some YouTube videos like blood draw on a hyena or blood draw on a tiger, and the dude comes in and he's got this long stick that he can put food on the end, and he comes in and he moves the tiger to the end of the cage. The tiger comes to the end of the cage, he marks it and rewards the tiger. He opens a little door, the tiger sticks his arm out, he touches his foot, he marks it and rewards the tiger, right? He's giving him food in the cage. That's a constant state of reinforcement, okay? Zoo animals, aquatic animals, your SeaWorlds and stuff like that, that is a constant state of reinforcement. They never take those animals into a variable state. They never ask multiple behaviors between rewarding the animal. Because it creates aggravation and confusion, you don't want to aggravate and confuse a hyena that's got its arm out of a door that you're trying to do a blood draw on, right? So you want it to be fair, and you want it to happen every time very precisely. But with dogs, we can take them into a variable state, okay? Once you get into that variable state of reinforcement, you're still going to reward. You're just going to space out your reward, okay? So you can ask for a sit and a down, and you can ask for some some longer behavior. Man, I just brain farted on that word. You can ask for some longer behavior on the dog. Like you can put them in a down and take 3 steps away and then 3 steps back, mark, reward, that kind of thing. You can ask for a down, you can walk away, you can come back, you can ask for a sit, you can mark, reward, that kind of thing. That's variable, okay? So I don't want people getting confused with constant and variable with the amount of reward you give the dog, okay? So in the constant state, you can give more than one reward. You can give multiple rewards or make your reward high, your reward value higher, right? So I don't like to just click and give one kibble or click and give one handful of kibble every single time, right? So I mix it up. So I may say sit, I mark, and then I may give like 3 or 4 handfuls of kibble. And then I ask for a sit and I mark, and then I give 2 handfuls of kibble. And then I say sit and I mark and I give 1. And then I say sit and I mark and I give 6, right? And the number of pieces in my hand aren't always the same, things like that. So that in of itself is a varied value of reward, right? It's the amount is varied, but I'm constantly rewarding the dog for every single behavior. That's important, okay? And it's also important to change up the value of the reward that you're giving the dog. I hope that's clear. If anybody has questions there, shoot them out. Once you move into a varied state, it's very cut and dry. Either you're rewarding the dog for the behavior or you're not rewarding the dog for the behavior. So you say sit, the dog sits, and you do not reward. And then you say down, the dog downs, and then you either reward or you don't reward again. And then you say, if you don't reward again, you say sit again, the dog sits, and then you mark and you reward, right? And you can build that out. You don't want to do it fast. You don't want to ask for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different behaviors all in a row. Like you want to build that out, and you build it out slowly to where you can move further and further away from the dog. You can leave the dog in a sustained, that's the word I was looking for, a sustained behavior like a down or a sit for longer and longer, but you gotta build that out and don't rush it. And your behaviors, your multiple behavior chain building, you want to build that out slowly too, so that the dog understands like, hey, it's coming, I'm going to get it, right? Once you get to that state, you can go, depending on the dog, fairly quick. Like you've gotten to a point where you can move a lot more rapidly than like the learning stage, right? So when we're talking constant and variable state, it's important to know that this applies to every single behavior you teach the dog. Every one. If you're teaching a new behavior, like you've taught your dog to sit, stand, down, go to a place, but now you're teaching the dog to heel and come to your side, right? That's a brand new behavior the dog's learning. That is constant state reward. Even though your other behaviors may be in a variable state, this new behavior needs to be in a constant state. And you got to do it for a long time, multiple repetition. And a lot of people ask here, like, well, how long? Like 2 weeks, like a week, like 200 reps, 300 reps, 1,000 reps? And the honest answer is, it depends on the dog. Every single dog is going to be different. My advice is don't rush it, okay? If you think your dog is ready, I would start testing them in like other places. Like if you're just in your house and your dog's getting it and it's nailing it every time, and you think, man, my dog's ready to go to a variable state, load them up and take them to the park. Ask for the same behavior. See if you get it there. Take them to the home improvement stores. Ask for behavior. See if you get it there. My kind of golden rule for myself and my clients' dogs when I'm working them, and like I'm taking dogs out, I'm going around to different places, I'm showing the dog the picture that this doesn't just apply here in my living room or the front yard or the backyard. This applies everywhere we go. And once they have that behavior down everywhere we go, and they're giving me the engagement and they're excited about the behavior, then I'm going to throw the variable state on there. So I mentioned Vegas slot machines, right? So basically, this is what we're doing. We're turning our dogs into gamblers. Um, Hope is very powerful for a dog, and we're going to get into that in the next week with dopamine. I'll talk about dopamine next week. But hope is very, very powerful in dogs. So when you move to a variable state and you show them that now I'm going to reward you, but I'm not going to reward you every time, you have to work a little harder for it. The dog does start working harder for it because it's trying to figure out, how do I get them to give me the reward faster? So if I put my butt on the ground faster, does that work? If I down faster, does that work? If I come to a heel position faster, does that work? The dog starts like, come on, man, let's get this going, right? Like, give me the reward. So they start building this momentum in their behaviors in a variable state. So take it slow, build it out, and you'll really see that build up in the dog, depending on the dog. And it's going to be varied levels of energy per dog. Like, I get my Belgian Malinois out as like demo dogs sometimes for people, and they see how quick and fast and how much energy they have and doing behaviors. And most pet dog people are like, I don't want that in my dog. And I'm thinking like, yeah, you're not going to get this in your 6-year-old lab, right? It has to do with the dog as well, okay? The energy level, the heart and soul, the desire they put into it. You can get a lot out of most dogs, depending on how well you do it, how good a trainer you are, that kind of thing. But that's kind of constant state, variable state. So you want to be careful there. You really want to know about that. And those new behaviors you're teaching, keep it in that constant state and build that desire. Also remember at this point, keep your training sessions short. Like, just like, Brian, what am I going to do with you, man? Come on, get in the program, buddy. So just like with loading the marker, I talked about keeping your session short, your training session short. Keep your training sessions short. They should be multiple times a day, but short sessions. We're talking 2, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, depending on the dog, that kind of thing, but multiple. So it's like I said, if you meet a new person and you want to go hang out with that person and you go out and you're having fun throughout the night and everything's going well and you're having a good time, and then like it just gets to be too much and they want to do too much and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you're exhausted and you're like, man, I just want to go home, and they're like, no, come on, we got to go, but you're riding with them and you don't really have any chance or any choice, so you're just kind of going along with them, and then finally at 5 o'clock in the morning they drop you off and they're like, man, we had a blast, and you were like, yeah, it was fun. And you go in and you go to bed, and then the next night or a few nights later they ask you to go out again, and you were like, okay, well, like, I had fun, and they do that same thing again. Like, eventually you're going to be like, I don't want to hang out with this person, like, it's too much, this person is too much, right? So it's the same thing with your dog. Like, keep it short. You want your dog to get out, have fun with you, do these awesome things and get all these awesome rewards, and be at that like peak of, man, I'm having a blast, and then put the dog up. I promise. It seems cruel and people look at it and go, well, I'm having fun with my dog, I want to keep going. When you put your dog up after they've had too much, the next time they get out, they're going to be thinking, it's this crap again, right? But if you put your dog up when they're at the peak of happiness, everything's great, and then you get them out and start going, they'll be like, I remember this, I had a great time, I can't wait to do this again. And they'll have more enthusiasm and drive into it. So keep that. So that brings me to deep practice. I kind of debated on whether or not to throw this in, but it's something that I truly believe in. So I wanted to squeeze it in for you guys. Deep practice. So this comes from a book. The book is Talent Code. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend reading Talent Code. A lot of dog trainers have read this book. A lot of dog trainers go by this book, but it's not just for dog training. It's for sports, music, learning, all kinds of stuff. So one of the things it covers is deep practice, and it starts. Spoiler alert! It starts the book by talking about a girl playing a piano, a young girl learning to play the piano. Okay, and it talks about how most people learning to play the piano, they have a sheet of music and they'll be playing along with the sheet and they'll hit a note that they don't quite get and they'll kind of mess with it a minute and then they'll continue on with the song, right? So this girl, what she did was she started playing the song. She got to a note that she had problems with. She stopped. She corrected that note. She messed with it until she got it perfect. And then she went back to the start of the song and started it all over again. And once she could get through that note correctly, then she can continue on with the rest of the song, opposed to other people messing with the note and just continuing with the song. So what they found is she could practice for like 15 minutes a day and get the same amount of practice as someone that was actually doing it the other way and practicing for hours on end, like an hour, 2 hours. So with your dog, it's the same thing, and I see this a lot. People will have a dog that doesn't do a behavior exactly the way they want it, and maybe they're like in that variable state where their dog can sit or down or do a couple of different behaviors. And what they'll do is their dog doesn't do something exactly right, so they'll mess with it for just a second and then they'll just move on. So what I do with my dogs is if I'm in some kind of routine and I have like a training plan. When I come out with my dog, I know what I'm going to work on. I have a plan in my mind what I'm going to work on, but I'm also flexible to the dog. But I can pretty much know how it's going to go. So I get my dog out and I start doing some behaviors. And if my dog messes up a behavior, so let's say I'm heeling straight and I want to down my dog as I continue heeling, right? Everyone can make jokes because my dog's horrible at this, as we saw in trial. He'll blow me off. Anyway, if I'm heeling and I tell my dog to down and he messes up his down, I will stop, I will come down, back, I will get the down, and then I will back the dog up and we will do it all over again until the dog gets it. And then once the dog nails it, I reward. Because I want it clear in their mind that like that's what I wanted, right? So when you're working with your dog, make sure what you're getting out of your dog is the picture you want. And if it's not, don't keep going. Okay? Does that make sense? And most of y'all are pet dog people, so you don't want that exact, precise obedience type stuff. But what you can get into is you tell your dog to sit, and maybe they're very excited, lot of drive dog, a lot of energy in the dog. And maybe they take their butt down to the floor, but they hover like right there and they don't completely touch the floor. And they're waiting for you. They're anticipating for you to mark and reward. So that can go to that, can go to that, can go to that. And the dog can one day, you'll tell them to sit and they'll just stand and look at you like, come on, click the clicker, say the word, give me the reward, right? So be precise in that. Like really look for those details and make sure you have them before you do that. That's pretty important. I highly recommend that. So keep the deep practice in mind. Does anybody have any questions for me so far? All right, Katie, see ya. That's deep practice. So now I want to talk about reward placement, okay? Reward placement is also very important with dogs. Not only the placement, but how you give the reward. So a lot of people, I see them out there training the dog, and they will have their bag, like their treat bag, in one side in one pocket or on one side, and they'll continuously like right hand feed the dog, right? Every single reward they give comes from the right hand. Pretty soon, the dog comes from paying attention to you, the person, to paying attention to the hand, because that's where the treats are coming from, not here, but there. So, how to keep that from happening is reward with both hands. Vary that. It should come from all kinds of places. So that reward placement is important. Also, like rewarding the dog in place when the dog is first learning something can be very important. So it's very clear in the dog's mind what they're being rewarded for. So if you have a dog in a sit and you mark and have the dog come to you every time to get the reward from you, the dog could start anticipating that and moving from the sit to come to you, or just not sitting at all, or hovering its butt, stuff like that. So sometimes it's good to mark and just reward, right? Be next to the dog, reward the dog in place, or say good, or say sit again and reward the dog right where they are, to get that sustained behavior. If the dog is in a down, you can say down again and give it its reward while it's in the down, and then mark it and have the dog come out of the behavior to access the reward. That's acceptable. That's good practice. If you want to get your place, like go into a place bed and staying there, reward on the place bed. You can even put food on the place bed for the dog to get. That's just reward placement. So we'll talk real quick about indirect and direct reward. So indirect reward is a reward away from you. Direct reward is a reward directly from you. So like having a tug, the dog bites the tug, or giving the dog food out of your hand, that's a direct reward. Indirect would be like throw the ball to go to get the ball, or there's a tug or ball laying on the ground and you release them to go access it, or throwing food for them to go get. So like on a place bed, you can actually put food on the place bed. So you're given an indirect reward. So kind of in the dog's mind, the food is coming from the bed. So the bed is a good place to be, right? So you can really make that a really good, solid, sustained behavior. But you don't want to do that always. You want to change it up. So you don't want your dog getting on the place bed and looking for treats. And no, there's no treats, so I'm belling. You want some of it coming from you out of your hand while they're on the place bed. You want some of it coming from you away from the place bed, so they come off of the bed to access the reward from you. Throw the reward off the bed so they can go access the reward. That kind of stuff. You want to make that very clear. You want to change up where your rewards are coming from. So one of the best ways to explain this is with heel, and it's a competition heel. When your dog's on your side, it's looking straight up at your face, right? That really nice, pretty heel that you can get a dog. So if the handler is constantly rewarding the dog from the right side, usually your heel's on the left side. So if they're constantly rewarding from the right, what that dog is going to do, I'm going to back this up a minute. What the dog is going to do is the dog is on your left, you're rewarding from your right. Pretty soon that dog's going to start doing what's called crabbing and maybe forging, coming forward. They're going to come around because they're anticipating the reward, or they're trying to get closer to the reward. So in pet dog terms, if you want your dog to walk on a leash nicely beside you, right? So to train that, you take your dog out and your dog walks beside you. You tell them, no, get beside me. They walk beside you, you mark it, reward. You take a few steps, they're beside you, mark it and reward. You build that out, right? So you want to reward from your left hand and your right hand. Maybe get them to come access the reward from behind you to keep them back. So if the reward's always out front, maybe they start coming forward out in front of you a little bit to access the reward quicker because they know it's going to come from back there. So maybe you bring it from behind you and the dog has to come, back around behind you to get the reward, which will keep them back a little bit because they're anticipating, maybe it's coming from behind him. I'll hang back kind of thing. So change that up. Because if you're always doing out front right hand and you want your dog to walk beside you, just normally loose leash, good solid walk, and you're constantly out front left hand coming across, that dog could come across, and pretty soon now you can't go for a walk because every time you go for a walk, your dog jumps in front of you. And you're like, what is wrong with this crazy dog? Well, he's really just trying to get, he knows the rewards are going to come from over there. So I'll just go ahead and start coming around, and it'll start small to where you don't notice it, and it'll build quick. So just keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on your reward placement. Vary it up, indirect, direct reward, that kind of thing. I like to do like releasing my dog for rewards behind them. That's a good practice. So if the rewards are always constantly coming from in front, I'm in front, I'm constantly giving the rewards from front, they may start creeping a little bit. So like if they're in a sit, they'll creep forward a little bit, or if they're in a down, they'll kind of creep forward. They're trying to get to you. They're not trying to be disobedient. They're not trying to be bad dogs, right? The dog is just thinking, if I move forward a few inches, like I can get to my reward faster. I know it's coming from there. So if some of the rewards are released, the dog is released to go behind them, like that'll stop creeping because they're like, okay, is he gonna give it to me or am I gonna go back and get it? So like I have to stay here, and if I stay here, I can access faster whichever way it's coming from. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense to everyone. I'm not getting any questions, so either I'm super boring and no one likes this, or I am awesome at explaining this and everyone's on board. I hope it's the latter, but I doubt it. No. I was really expecting questions this time from people because this is some deep stuff, and next week will be even deeper. I promise. All right. So that's all I got. So constant state reward, starting new behaviors, guys. Build that out. When you move to variable, once again, build it out. Be slow, be intentional about it. Everyone wants to rush to getting your dog to sit down, go to place, come here, go to heel, go down, sit, come, that kind of thing, right? They want to build that out. That takes time. It takes time. So build it out correctly. If you rush it, you're going to get a dog that's going to be like, this Coke machine is broke. It's unfair. I'm not playing this game anymore. They'll check out on you. They'll be done. They won't want to play. They won't want to do the behaviors. So build that out very intentionally. Keep an eye on the dog. Judge it. Just be a good judge. These are all the things dog trainers do on the fly. We're used to it. We can read the individual dog. That's why you pay a dog trainer. The experience in that, and then keep the deep practice in mind when you're doing this. Try not to do bad behaviors or behaviors that you're like, oh well, okay, I'll take it kind of thing. Like really get it precise. Because the more precise it is, the more clear it's going to be in the dog's mind in the long run, right? So, and then your reward placement. Remember your reward placement, that kind of thing. I did want to also talk about reward placement in the hand. So let's see if I can do this. So I have some kibble here, right? So if I'm going to give dogs kibble out of my hand and maybe your dogs bite a little hard or something like that, man, this is hard with this camera. So I put my thumb over the kibble. And then the dog comes in, the dog's trying to get it, right? And then I can just roll my thumb. And as I roll my thumb, the kibble's released and the dog can access it. So same thing with that's why I like smaller treats. And I like treats that can be eaten really, really quickly. So like these freeze-dried livers, once again, I'll put them under my thumb. So the dog comes in, they can smell it, they can taste it, they can lick it, but they can't really get it, and they're trying, and then I just roll my thumb and the dog accesses it. So that's a good way to, if you're giving treats like this, you're going to get your fingers bit. But if you're like this, the dog comes in and it's a lot more surface area. You do have some big mouthed dogs out there that, they can get in and act a little crazy. So yeah, that's about it for tonight. If no one else has any questions, comments, that kind of thing. All right. Well, this will be out there. I'm saving it, and it'll be on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, please like, share, subscribe, whatever, all that stuff. Thanks. See you guys.